Hello, I'm Essay, your AI essayist. Please note that all content, audio and video in this presentation are AI generated. As AI can sometimes produce inaccuracies, I encourage you to verify any factual information presented. With that in mind, let's begin.
Euclid's Elements stands as a singular monument in the intellectual history of humanity, a work of such profound influence that its structure has become synonymous with the very architecture of logical proof. Composed around 325 BCE in the vibrant cosmopolitan hub of Alexandria, this collection of 13 books transcends its status as a mere mathematical text. It is the codification of deductive reasoning, a blueprint for establishing certainty from a handful of foundational truths. For over 2 millennia, its propositions and proofs shaped the minds of mathematicians, scientists, and philosophers, establishing a paradigm for rigorous argumentation that would underpin the Western intellectual tradition. While the individual geometric and number-theoretic results within the elements were largely the discoveries of Euclid's predecessors, his genius lay in the monumental act of synthesis and organization. He constructed an unshakable logical edifice, a system so coherent and seemingly complete that its legacy continues to unfold, revealing new depths even through the analysis of its subtle imperfections. The genesis of the elements lies in the fertile ground of Hellenic thought, a culture captivated by the harmony and order of the cosmos, which they believed was best understood through the language of geometry. The work represents the culmination of 3 centuries of mathematical exploration, the foundational insights of figures like Thales of Miletus, who is credited with introducing abstract geometry to Greece, and Pythagoras of Samos, whose school explored the relationship between numbers and geometric forms, provided the initial conceptual vocabulary. Later, brilliant minds, like Hippocrates of Chios, made significant strides in systematizing geometric knowledge and confronting complex problems, such as the quadrature of the lune. Perhaps the most crucial contributions came from Theaetetus of Athens, whose work on irrational magnitudes and the classification of the 5 regular polyhedra forms the basis of books X and 13, and from Eudoxus of Cnidus, a thinker of breathtaking sophistication. Eudoxus' theory of proportion, presented in Book V, was a masterstroke that resolved the profound philosophical crisis precipitated by the discovery of incommensurable quantities, such as the square root of 2. By defining ratios in purely geometric terms, he circumvented the inadequacy of whole number arithmetic, creating a powerful tool for comparing any 2 magnitudes of the same kind. Euclid, working within the scholarly milieu of the newly founded Library of Alexandria, inherited this rich but disparate collection of theorems, constructions, and proofs. His revolutionary contribution was the imposition of a single, unifying axiomatic deductive framework, transforming a body of accumulated wisdom into a self-contained, logically sequential universe of knowledge. The architecture of the elements is a testament to its purpose, the pursuit of irrefutable certainty. Each book begins with a series of definitions, establishing a precise language for the objects of study, such as points, lines, and circles. Following these are the foundational principles upon which the entire system rests: the postulates and the common notions. The common notions are self-evident truths applicable across all sciences. For instance, things which are equal to the same thing are also equal to one another. The postulates are the specific assumptions of geometry. The first 4 are simple constructive claims: one can draw a straight line between any 2 points, extend a finite straight line continuously, draw a circle with any center and radius, and all right angles are equal to one another. The fifth postulate, however, possesses a complexity that sets it apart. It states that if a straight line falling on 2 straight lines makes the interior angles on the same side less than 2 right angles, the 2 straight lines, if produced indefinitely, meet on that side on which are the angles less than the 2 right angles. This verbose and less intuitive statement, which is equivalent to the more familiar axiom that through a point external to a given line there is exactly one parallel line, became the subject of intense scrutiny for 2,000 years. From this sparse foundation of definitions, postulates, and common notions, Euclid derives a chain of 465 propositions, each proved with meticulous care using only the axioms and previously established propositions. The logical progression is relentless and beautiful. Book I builds the essential toolkit of plane geometry, beginning with the very first proposition, the construction of an equilateral triangle on a given finite straight line. This initial step is profoundly significant, for it demonstrates that the system is generative. It can create new objects and prove their properties from its axioms alone. The book culminates in proposition I.47, the Pythagorean theorem, which states that in a right-angled triangle, the area of the square on the side subtending the right angle is equal to the sum of the areas of the squares on the sides containing the right angle. Its placement as the penultimate proposition of the book highlights the rigorous, sequential nature of the elements its proof depends on a complex web of earlier results concerning areas and congruences. The work continues this methodical ascent, with books 2 through V expanding on plane geometry and incorporating Eudoxus' theory of proportion, books 7 through 9 pivot to number theory, exploring concepts like divisibility, prime numbers and perfect numbers. Here, in proposition ix.20, one finds the elegant proof for the infinitude of prime numbers, a model of indirect reasoning that remains a cornerstone of mathematical education. The concluding books return to geometry, investigating irrational lines in Book X and culminating in the construction of the 5 Platonic solids in Book 13, bringing the work to a majestic and symmetrical. The impact of the elements was both immediate and enduring. It swiftly became the canonical textbook for mathematics throughout the ancient world, a status it would retain for well over 2 millennia. Its clarity and logical coherence was so overwhelming that it largely eclipsed the works of Euclid's predecessors, making it our primary, and sometimes sole, source for their contributions. The great mathematicians of antiquity who followed, such as Archimedes of Syracuse and Apollonius of Perga, took Euclid's work as their starting point, building their own more advanced theories upon its unshakable foundation. As the classical world waned, the elements embarked on a crucial journey eastward. It was translated into Arabic by scholars in the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, most notably by al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf ibn Matta in the 9th century and later refined by Ishaq ibn Hunayn. These translations were instrumental in preserving Greek mathematical thought and fueling the great intellectual flourishing of the Islamic Golden Age. Through the cross-pollination of cultures in Spain and Sicily, the elements returned to Europe. The 12th century translation from Arabic into Latin by Adelard of Bath was a pivotal event, reintroducing a standard of logical rigour that had been absent from the continent for centuries. It became a core text in the medieval university curriculum and a vital catalyst for the scientific revolution. The axiomatic method of the elements provided a powerful model for organizing knowledge in other fields. Isaac Newton consciously structured his Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica in a Euclidean fashion, beginning with definitions and axioms of motion from which he derived his laws of mechanics and universal gravitation. In the 17th century, the philosopher Baruch Spinoza, in his Ethics, attempted to apply the geometric method to metaphysics, seeking to deduce the nature of God, the mind, and human freedom with the same logical certainty as a proof about triangles. The influence extended even into the political realm. Abraham Lincoln famously studied the elements late into the night, seeking to master its method of demonstration to sharpen his legal and political arguments. For centuries, to be educated meant to have studied Euclid. For all its perceived perfection, the true genius of the elements may lie in its most conspicuous flaw, the Fifth Postulate. From the beginning, commentators like Proclus in the 5th century CE observed that this postulate felt different, more like a theorem that ought to be provable from the other, simpler axioms. This suspicion launched one of the longest and most fruitful quests in the history of mathematics, the attempt to prove the parallel postulate. For 2,000 years, mathematicians including Omar Khayyam, Girolamo Sacchari, and Johann Lambert dedicated themselves to this task, inadvertently discovering a host of theorems in what would later be recognized as a new form of geometry. Their consistent failure to derive a contradiction from the negation of the postulate ultimately led to a revolutionary insight. In the early 19th century, Nikolai Lobachevsky, Janos Bolyai, and later Bernhard Riemann came to the extraordinary realization that one could reject Euclid's fifth postulate and, in its place, assume an alternative. For instance, that through a given point there are multiple parallels to a linear and still construct a perfectly consistent, self-contained geometric system. This discovery of non-Euclidean geometry shattered the centuries-old conviction that Euclid's system was the one true description of physical space. It bifurcated the concept of geometry into pure mathematics, a realm of logical consistency, and applied mathematics, a tool for modeling the physical world, whose appropriateness becomes an empirical question. This paradigm shift paved the way for Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity, which describes spacetime as a curved, non-Euclidean manifold. Furthermore, the intense scrutiny of the elements revealed other, more subtle logical gaps. Mathematicians in the late 19th century, most notably David Hilbert in his 1899 work Grundlagen der Geometrie, Foundations of Geometry, recognized that Euclid had made tacit assumptions based on his diagrams, for instance, concerning the order of points on a line or the continuity of lines and circles. Hilbert reformulated geometry on a more rigorous axiomatic basis, making explicit all the assumptions needed for a complete logical system. This endeavor to formalize Euclid's work was a foundational moment for modern mathematical logic and the formalist school of thought. In conclusion, Euclid's Elements is far more than a compendium of geometric facts. It is an intellectual achievement of the highest order, a work that taught the Western world a new way to think. Its true contribution was methodological, the establishment of the axiomatic deductive system as the paramount standard for truth and certainty. This structure, rising from a few simple axioms to a complex and beautiful universe of theorems, provided a model of clarity and rigor that has profoundly shaped the development of science, philosophy, and law. The Elements stands as a testament to the power of logical organization, a demonstration that from a handful of welches and starting points, an entire world of knowledge can be constructed. Its enduring legacy is a beautiful paradox, a work that appeared for 2 millennia as a complete and final description of space found its greatest influence in the intellectual revolution sparked by its one perceived imperfection. It remains a foundational document, a source of inspiration, and a timeless monument to the human capacity for reason.
We really appreciate you tuning into this AI-powered presentation. Our goal is to push the boundaries of AI in content creation, and your input is invaluable. If there's a particular subject you'd like to see us tackle next, or if you have suggestions on how we could fine-tune our AI's creative prompts, please don't hesitate to leave your ideas in the comments section. We're excited to bring you more unique content very soon.